being labeled unattractive and in some cases ugly can have a positive effect on your paycheck in a good way. This is the focus group.
It's the savvy side of 9 to 5. Listen.
Bueller.
Laugh. And learn.
Negotiation. This is what you do in business.
This is the focus group with Tim Bennett.
Staunch.
And John Nash.
Keep your clothes looking neat and clean.
We're all business. Except when we're not.
Did you? Hey, welcome to the focus group with two ugly guys, Tim Bennett, my good friend and co-host, John Nash. John found this article we're going to talk about later in Shop Talk about how not only unattractive, but really ugly people seem to make more money. It'll be quite a discussion. But,
I read the, yeah. We'll leave it at that. We'll just leave it.
Before then, it's one of my favorite shows, although we've got people booked in the next few weeks. But I love it. It's been almost guestless month.
It's been Tim's
I
heaven.
absolutely adore. It'd even be better if we had no billboards or anything either. I could just go right through and be done with it.
What?
But sponsors pay the bills.
Making it sound like I would be done with it.
I'd be done with it.
Show up and do the show. Okay.
So thanks for joining us here. We're here every Wednesday at Facebook Live and also our YouTube stream, which is also Focus Group Radio. You can just Google it and find us on the YouTube and watch us live on the stream. Some people said there were some issues with the streaming last week. I don't know what. I checked and it seemed okay. If you're still having issues, just send us an email and we'll check it out. But find everything out at focusgroupradio.com. Also, you can locate our Tuesday podcast, which is TFG Unbuttoned, which gives you a different look of us and a little more ungarnered chat around politics sometimes.
Yeah.
Pop culture.
Tangentially. We
back and forth.
tend to stay away from some of the stuff the talking heads are doing quite a good job of 24/7.
Yeah. Thanks to our boys in the booth, Garrett and John.
Afternoon, gentlemen.
What happened to the other camera we used? Did you get rid of that one?
We put it over here for like if you guys ever have an audience or when other shows do.
Oh, there it is.
We can do this.
Story of my life. When I was a recruiter, that's what sometimes the room looked like. Looking for a job.
Move and stuff.
Oh, there we are. Oh, look at the
fun.
green screen.
That's fun.
Now you're taking the illusion away, say, of our outside studio. And you guys, thanks for bringing us out to everybody. And John, you have a good week?
So far, so good. Yes. You and I have been talking about a couple things that have been troubling to me lately. And they're mundane on some levels, but, one of them is the Lowe's thing. So
Lowe's?
Yeah. So, Lowe's has home construction services. We used them a number of years ago to have some storm windows replaced. They did a beautiful job, or I should say the contractor they work with did a beautiful job. We had the process done again because we're replacing the storm windows in three sets. The worst were the first, the ones that aren't facing the worst of the weather, which is usually north or south. This batch of 6 was not done the same way the last ones were. In fact,
different contractor.
Different contractor. Same guy that spec'd the job. Loved the guy that did all the spec work and ordered all the parts. So one of the windows, when you look out the window, if you're inside, you look out towards the storm window. It's literally the storm window's like crooked. It's like a fun house.
So wait a minute. So you have windows. This is an older house, so you don't have it all in one window.
So the interior window is like a Pella double pane, and then the exterior is
outside.
storm, because that's when they built the house that way. Now they do the whole window
all in one
goes
thing,
in one construction. So a lot of the older houses have this, and so here we are almost a month after the fact, and no one's like, it's all this kind of voicemail, finger pointing. Did you call the guy that did the install back? And I'm like, yeah, but why would I bother if 6 out of 6 windows have a problem?
And you contracted with Lowe's.
So they're the responsible party, in my opinion, and it should be them who solves the problem. But
see, I'm of the opinion, I don't know if there's a Home Depot near you, but I'm of the opinion based upon my experience, and particularly recently down in Delaware, in southern Delaware, in Lewis, there's a Lowe's right next door to a Home Depot. And the experience I've had is if you want to go to Lowe's and buy something that has maybe a little bit of style, put up a fixture or put something in yourself, that's one thing. To have them do any sort of contracting work we've had nothing but disaster
Really?
with Lowe's. Yeah, Home Depot, far better. I think Home Depot's far better for somebody to come in and
Yeah.
do work. That's just my experience. The Lowe's in Lewis, Delaware is atrocious. I mean, I could work in some of these departments better than some of the people that are there.
So I'm almost thinking of starting you and I were laughing about hashtags the other day. And I was wondering, what would be a fun hashtag that you could start about this? And
Lowe's blows.
now, I came up with something a little more neutral.
What was yours going to be?
Lowe's dropped the ball.
Oh, for God's sakes.
But
Lowe's blows.
Let me jot that down.
If you Twitter them, if you tweet these things, apparently they're more responsive. Although I tried to tweet Amtrak. I tell you the story about the homeless that are on every week now trying to get money on Amtrak.
No.
So if you're here in the Penn Station to go south toward Philadelphia, Baltimore, D.C. or whatever, I don't know how they get downstairs because you're supposed to show your ticket to get out on the platform generally. I mean, you and I know a couple ways to get down.
Yeah, okay.
In Philly, you can't get down unless you show a ticket. New York, you're supposed to, but there's a way to figure it out, which we've done. But so have the homeless. So the train...
So have the homeless. If we figured it out, they figured it out.
So for weeks, this guy gets on with the same story. He's looking for $11 trying to get to Hackensack
11.
or where the hell he's going.
Not 11.50, not 9.
And
11.
I used to yell at them after the second. I'd be like, "You've been collecting that money for 3 weeks. You still haven't got $11?" And then they run off the train. And then the sad one is you see that the women come in with the 3 little kids with a pathetic story, and she makes the loop. She does it all the time, and I've yelled at her once. But they come through, they give their sad sack tale before the train leaves. The conductors seem to ignore them. They get up and they make a big announcement in front of the car and want people to give them money. And then they go from car to car, and that train leaves, and they wait for the next one to come in. And so I got so aggravated.
Wow.
Not last week, the week before, I actually got on the Twitter. But Amtrak didn't respond. But usually they'll respond to something like that. But it's unnerving that they allow the solicitation on Amtrak, I think.
Well,
You expect it on the subway?
no, we do, but you're not supposed to on the subway either. There's signs everywhere that say if you want to give money, here's a charitable organization, here's a place to do it, but they're not supposed to be collecting or panhandling on the subway. This Amtrak thing is a complete new one on me. I mean, it's
only happened out in New York, and it happens quite frequently. And so I made a complaint through Amtrak's Twitter account, but there was no response or anything.
So, customer service, that's what you and I talk about a great deal. And this thing, going back to the Lowe's thing, the disappointment is the front end of the job was really super. Phone calls, scheduling, everything was... And when the crew left after these were put in and I began extracting the windows to clean them, and I realized I couldn't remove half the windows because the frames had been either put in the wrong way or they had been crimped or something, I just got so angry because I realized that I'm on the back end of it now, which means it's not going to get solved anytime soon.
Well, did the crew that did these, they must have known they put them in wrong. Didn't they try to, because if they would have tried the same thing you did, right? Let's see if they go up and down.
Well, one of them was you almost need pliers and a hammer to. You're talking about glass, so I just got really upset. And Bob says to me, he goes, "Why are you so angry?" I said, "Because you watch. This is going to be. There's a whole process leading up to it because we wanted to do it before the winter. There's going to be a whole process to unwind this, and the unwinding is going to take a lot longer than the going into it." And the thing that upsets me about it is they don't make it easy to get this solved. And
No.
you would think that a customer-facing organization should be right on it. Like, okay, what's wrong? Let's fix this. Don't tell me to go back to the guy that put him in wrong. Why is that my responsibility?
And he doesn't care either, right?
No. Well, I guess they care, but,
He's getting paid by Lowe's. You're paying
when
Lowe's.
I did call the guy back, he said, "I'll bring someone with me in a caulking gun." And I'm like, "No,
it's not a caulk.
You're gonna." Frankly, of the 6, they probably have to pull 3 off and redo the frames for every single one of them. But 3 of the windows are definitely beyond. Anyway,
Beyond caulk.
they're beyond caulk.
My
Lowe's
favorite
blows.
one was when I bought the Lowe's blows. When I got my appliances from Lowe's, I bought a new washer and dryer. In my house, in Pennsylvania, it's an older house, and it's cement walls on each side that have been there since the house was built. So there's a washer and dryer in the basement.
I love this story.
So the 2 goons come they're supposed to deliver the new one.
Take the old one away.
Take the old one away. So they get down there and they can't get the old one out. Can't fit it in. I said, you must have built the house after. I said, what? I said, do you think I said, first of all, this appliance is not that old that you're removing. Do you think the house was built around the washer and dryer in a basement, an open basement, and the house was built around it?
It might have been referencing Mike Mulligan and the steam shovel.
And I said, and look at the way down. It's 2 cement slabs on the way. It got down here. It can get out. So I actually had to go to Lowe's to the store and talk to the manager and complain and say, I don't want those same 2. But they sent those 2 back. And they wouldn't talk to me because what happened was...
got reprimanded.
Well, what ended up happening is my neighbor Brian from AdMark 360 and Rich came over. I had a bad back, as you know, and we got him out and I put him out on the lawn and when they came because I said, I'm not going to go through this again with these idiots.
But
And so when they're sitting out there, they're both looking at him. I said, see, they did come out. I didn't have to remove the cement walls. They were lazy.
I didn't have to remove the cement walls.
Lowe's blows.
Hashtag.
Lowe's blows.
You know, I may say something on. I said to Bob, you know, I may say something because you know that. On the plus side, I imagine that if you're anybody in marketing or customer service at this company, you would want to know about this, right? Because you'd want to fix the problem. You don't want the problem to begin with, and the way to fix it is to know if there is one. Well, but look at your expression. I'm asking too much, aren't I? I'm asking way too much. All right.
You know what the big problem is Lowe's and Home Depot are having now? These Korean refrigerators that are coming in, these South Korean refrigerators that have all of the built-in LED displays, now little TVs.
Yes.
You know what they're doing there? They're trying to, I know somebody that works for one of those stores, and they're trying to figure out how to disengage them. These people are going in and typing in porn and leaving porn up on the refrigerators.
The store model, the store
refrigerators,
display.
and all the store displays. Pornhub and all these different sites are going. So you're walking by to get a screwdriver, and it's like, you know. And they can't figure out how to shut it down. I think it's hilarious. So, of course, I went and I put us up.
Really?
Focus Group Radio, right on there. Our website and the page.
You're brilliant.
There you go. So what caught your eye this week?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
I've got 2 quick ones. One people may have already heard of because it's flying around the internet like wildfire. That internet's like wildfire, but it's a simple one. And unfortunately, some of these things always take place on a Southwest flight. I don't know why. Other airlines
Bargain Airlines, like going to the dollar store.
Yeah, exactly. But headline reads, a Florida man is facing a federal sexual assault charge after he was accused of groping a woman on a flight from Texas to New Mexico. So the accused is Bruce Michael Alexander. And on a Southwest flight, a woman that he was sitting next to woke up to find him touching her, how do they put this, lifting up her sweater and touching her skin around her bra line.
Touching me.
So if he's touching her around the bra line, that means he wanted to touch her breast, I'm assuming.
So she was sleeping?
She was sleeping.
First of all, a flight from Texas to New Mexico's got to be all of 20 minutes.
Oh, she might have been, you know. Oh, I know. It's like a plane.
Zip, zip.
Well, it's kind of like going from
driven.
New York to Boston.
Right.
Plane goes up and plane goes down.
She's sleeping. She wakes up and he's got his hands on her.
So the woman assumed the incident was an accident, like maybe his hand moved over. But 30 minutes later, she felt the same man grab her arm and again grab her right side around her ribs and bra line, which is a fancy way of saying try to cup her breast. Both the victim, the plane lands, police are called. The victim and Alexander, this Bruce Michael Alexander, stated that they were complete strangers to one another. According to the complaint, after Alexander was placed under arrest, he asked police what the sentence was for the charge he was being arrested for. Later, in the vehicle, the police car, Alexander told officers that the President of the United States says it's okay to grab women by their private parts.
True.
Well, he wasn't lying. This is, you know. So the cops took note of that, but it's a federal sexual assault charge. So that's the first one.
Well, wait. So let me ask you this as a question. So if you were on, I would think if I were a female or I was somebody on a plane like that and was touched inappropriately.
She has to be reseated, by the way.
I was going to say, so did she get a reseated?
So after the first incident, she thought, well, maybe I was asleep, maybe I'm misinterpreting. Maybe he bumped.
So when she
into
got
me.
touched the second time,
she stood up. She's like, I need to be moved immediately, and this guy's harassing me. And that's when the police came to to arrest the guy at the gate. Yeah. So the president says it's okay. Touch women by their private parts. Now you have to wonder about this gentleman's mental aptitude to begin with. I mean, he doesn't need anybody.
President or?
No. No, Bruce Michael Alexander. So then the second article here is a little different. Comes to us from Iowa, and it's a man burns LGBTQ children's books from public library to protest a Pride festival. So the Pride festival is going to be held in, Sioux County. And he took books out of the library, specifically they were LGBT books that were children's books, or a couple of other ones as well, and he burned them in a barrel because they were shameful and wicked, and he wanted those books off the shelves and burned so that if they did story time, or if there was any book reading, they couldn't use these shameful and wicked books. Now, he's a member, his guy's name was Paul Dorr.
Is that him sitting in, if you're watching on
Yes.
the video, that's him?
Yeah, holding an innocent little children's book. I couldn't tell what the title was myself. I tried blowing it up, but so he's the director of something called Rescue the Perishing.
Oh.
Rescue the Perishing, a religious group he describes in the video as a crisis center and pro-life, pro-family movement.
He looks creepy.
Yeah.
Or
Well,
in my profile.
no, you're not. It just, now you know that he's a book burner. So
Did he just go take the books out of the library and burn them?
checked them out, and then he burned them, and he videotaped them. In fact, they're to the lower right of that picture. You see the fire there, the little
I
flames.
hope he was arrested.
The library is planning on pressing charges. They're investigating a little further, but he wasn't arrested for it yet. But there's going to be some consequence. But a guy out, one of the LGBTQ positive or plus associations had an interesting. He said, this gentleman says, it is disappointing to see folks break the law in a community where we believe abiding by the law keeps everyone safe. We are thankful for the LGBTQ plus community here in Northwest Iowa for setting a positive example of building a community in light of those who do violate or violent illegal things to prove a point. But then Mark Stringer, the head of the American Civil Liberties Union, simply said this, and this is how I feel about it. Burning books from a public library is a clear attempt to shut down the open sharing and discussion of ideas, right? It's one person or maybe a group deciding that they're the gatekeeper of ideas for the rest of the public. That's what that really is. It's a person saying, I'm going to tell you
what's moral and
what's moral and what's
right.
not.
I'm going to legislate morality.
And that's sadly, I think, a broader. This is a small glimpse of a broader problem that I think has been creeping into the culture. But again, that's not. We don't do that.
You think you know. You know it's been creepy.
Yeah, that's true. So that's what caught my eye.
Mine was a little different, obviously. They always are. Apparently there was a secret ingredient found in school lunches in Nebraska that made everyone feel a little jumpy.
Oh, God.
So a school cook was fired for serving kangaroo meat to the students.
Ugh.
So it says, Americans are pretty set on what we accept as food to eat. So, we'll eat pigs and cows, but we're not going to eat cats and ferrets. Or, there's certain things we're not going to eat dog, but in some places dog's okay to eat, right? Although we don't approve of it. But there was so this was at the Potter Dix school district in Nebraska last week. The head cook decided to serve the lunch. Kevin Fry is his name. And he decided to add kangaroo meat into the chili that the kids were having that day for its nutritional value and because it's a very lean meat. And it's also...
Where was this at now?
Nebraska.
How could he buy kangaroo meat in Nebraska?
It's USDA. It meets all USDA standards.
So it's safe.
It's not unhealthy or dangerous. And he said he expressed a little bit of remorse, but he thought it was going to be healthier for the kids. There's an obesity problem. Mm-hmm. So...
I didn't even know that you could buy kangaroo meat.
Yeah. Well, so if you're watching in the video, I posted there's some packaging for kangaroo meat. I don't know what to think of it. The issue...
That was a very important pause you made.
Well, the issue was they said that they didn't tell the students, obviously. So when word got out, they said that there was anxiety and people were upset and they wished they had known. They said this is not... And so the superintendent said, this is without a doubt not a normal staple of our diet, and no other non-staple foods will ever be part of the Porter Dix meal program again. They fired the chef from the school.
But, all right.
They said even though it meets USDA standards and it wasn't harmful, they thought that it created anxiety. for the kids.
They fired the chef
They
nonetheless.
fired the chef, and they said if a family wants to eat exotic foods at home, they can do it at their time, not at the school. So they said that,
Wow. Okay.
or the other option was they had to post that there's kangaroo meat in the chili.
Okay.
So if you went to go through your little school lunch buffet line and it said kangaroo burgers, that'd be okay. Obviously, his parents took to the internet, Facebook. They had to shut the comments off on Facebook because they got too out of control. People were upset. But in this article, which came out of Time magazine, they pointed out that eating kangaroo is actually quite common in Australia, France, and Germany. The French will eat anything, won't they?
Even frogs.
Bunnies.
The French will eat anything.
So I was trying to figure what would you eat kangaroo? Would you try it? Would you be upset if you got chili and they didn't tell you? So if you went to the grocery store and you bought a thing of chili and you assumed it wasn't labeled, but you assumed it was beef, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what we would assume.
Now then, the next.
Would you be
thing
upset
is,
if you found out it was buff or bison or it was?
I wouldn't care if it was
venison.
bison. I wouldn't care if it was venison, and I'm not
Or
so sure I would
kangaroo.
care if it was kangaroo.
Would you boys eat hoppity hop?
In a second.
Would you?
Definitely.
Yeah, I don't care.
But would you get upset in school if you didn't know about it? If you were in school and they said,
No.
"Hey, that chili," no.
I have a hard time believing this story, though. Because a chef doesn't buy the food for the cafeteria,
Well, this is Nebraska.
and kangaroo would be 4 times as expensive as beef. There's no way it would be in the budget to buy it.
Garrett,
good
that is a
chef.
very smart observation. That's a great observation.
Well, it wasn't. I know. I do check my sources now because
Unless
Fingers
they
up,
buy,
fingers
buy
up.
from some like Costco like food place where they just get whatever 50 pounds of meat no matter what it is. I could see that possibility, but that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind though. Why not?
Yeah, I would definitely
Sure,
eat
it
it.
tastes
Though.
good, like chicken.
Yeah, I was
you
gonna
know-
say, John, you read my mind. I was like, probably tastes like chicken, or it tastes like beef substitute.
it doesn't say how. It doesn't say because there were 4 or 5 different stories. This is the one that I had copied off, but it doesn't say how he did acquire it. And I don't know what. And that picture that we had of how much the meat was, I think that was euros though, so it was expensive.
It's definitely going to be more than beef.
Yeah, what's it say
Anywhere.
there on that little label up?
$18 a pound for
That's dollars, and that's expensive.
or
That one there.
kilogram or whatever.
Was that dollars?
It says dollars, but then it says kilogram. So maybe
Yeah, so
that's
that would be a lot of
Australia.
money. You're right. That's more than beef. But I don't know, Potter Dick School District. I don't know. Do you think? I don't know how I would feel about it.
I'm with the guys in the booth. I don't. Look, if it's
I'm
US
sure we've all eaten stuff we didn't know what it was.
Oh, hello.
Right?
At a restaurant, no doubt.
It's different for kids too because they're so picky and they
Yeah,
get it
yeah.
in their head about stuff. You know, us we'd be like, whatever.
Yeah.
When I went to Africa one time, they actually. I don't regret not going, but at the end, I went on one of these planned safaris. And so you go and you have to see all the big animals. So you see water buffalo and
Big
lion
game.
and the big game thing. But the last thing you do, and I skipped it, was to go out to a restaurant and then eat zebra, water buffalo, giraffe,
Really?
lion,
Exotic meat.
meats. And I the comrade and I decided not to do it. I mean, here we are looking at them in the wild, and it's like, serve it up.
So there's a show. I don't know if anybody's watched this on Netflix. It's called Travels with My Father. It's a young British comedian named Jack Williams. And he's probably in his early 30s, and he takes his dad, who's like 76, very bespoke gentleman, always wears suits and ties. His dad used to be a theatrical agent in London, knew Alec Guinness, like a really proper English gentleman. He takes him to Vietnam, Cambodia, and I forget what other country in the region. And
Laos.
at one point, they're sitting and they're being served traditional food. And they had just gone through a food market where they had bins of like beetles and worms and
Kitty cats.
They didn't do any of the pet stuff, but the guy that was their tour guide says, we're a very poor country, so anything that moves is a possible food source. And And at one point, the young kid, Jack, did not tell his dad, Michael, that they were going to be served calamari. And I'm doing the air quotes because I think the calamari was rattlesnake. And
I've had rattlesnake.
and the father eats. He's like, "Oh, this is very tasty."
Yeah.
Oh, he goes, "Oh, Jack, this is quite tasty." That British. And Jack had eaten it earlier on the segment, and it was like, since he knew what it was before he ate it, it was kind of like a weird thing. But the father thought it tasted fine. So
I had snake in Louisiana. They served it.
How was it?
It's all right. It was the same sort of thing, but I couldn't get beyond the fact that it was
It was a snake. That's all in your head.
But it's the same, in all my travels to Japan, they love to play that game with the Americans. And the thing that was the grossest thing I think I had was horse tongue.
Ugh.
Which, and it was raw, sliced nice and thin. You could see through it.
Yes.
That and raw shrimp, which I
So if it all comes down around our ears and we have to eat beetles and cockroaches, I suppose you do, but I'm not looking forward to it.
Well, you just be like you live in North Korea.
Yeah.
Business birthday today.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
Back in the day, I think we've done this birthday before, but there was nobody else around. Zachary Posen.
Oh, that was many, many years ago.
Born October 24th, 1980. He's only 38. Why I thought he was older, I don't know. Didn't you think he was older?
I did, yeah.
He's a American fashion designer, born and raised here in New York City. He had an interest in fashion, which I didn't know. They said his interest in fashion started as a young child. He would steal yarmulkes from his grandparents' synagogue and make ball dresses for dolls out of them. Little gay boy.
And a yarmulke, since it's round and like a cap shape, you just cut a hole, put the doll in it, you got
ball
a ball gown, yeah.
He attended private school, and his first job, he interned with fashion designer Nicole Miller. And then he enrolled at 16 in Parsons, a new school for design. He got his big break in 2000. He received a prominent career opportunity, they said, when he dressed Naomi Campbell a few times, and then she had talked a lot about the dress she had on. And then since then, he's become a favorite with Natalie Portman, Rihanna, Kate Winslet, Claire Danes, Cameron Diaz, Jennifer Lopez, Beyonce Knowles. So they all wear his items.
And of course, we only got introduced to him when they switched out
Project
Michael
Runway.
Kors and put him in place of Michael Kors for Project Runway, yeah.
Right. So he also has a collaboration with Sean John. He did a whole line for Target, but it was in Australia. I don't know why we didn't get it. He dressed Glenn Close at the Academy Awards, also Reese Witherspoon and Naomi Watts for the Golden Globes. And as John just mentioned, he started on Project Runway in 2012, and he stayed on, but he just announced a couple of weeks ago that he will not be returning to Project Runway for the 17th season, which is going back to Bravo.
Yeah.
They're moving back to Bravo. So I guess they're going to keep Gunn in the group of them.
I don't know about that. They may, but I know that who's the supermodel? Heidi Klum and Tim Gunn also negotiated some deal with Amazon or Netflix.
Oh, they did?
I think it's Amazon Prime to do a separate fashion show.
I love the show. And then I
yeah.
watched it again. I haven't watched it in a couple of years. Have you?
We've kept up with it.
Have you?
We always enjoy it. Yeah, we watch it on demand or something,
Yeah.
so we could.
He's also partnered with David's Bridal and created an affordable line of bridal gowns. I will say he's very busy. And then he was creative director, which is what you probably know him for if you watch Project Runway with Brooks Brothers, where they wanted him to modernize the women's clothing and accessories line. Now, there's a whole bunch of pictures, if you're watching on video. He designed all the outfits now for Delta Airlines, all the new uniforms for the 60,000 employees. And they were all debuted this May in 2018. And I was curious about them because if you look at them, I was curious about the color scheme. So they're putting all the women in purple.
I think they might mauve.
I mean, I would not say that was a color scheme I would.
Well, it's purple and gray is the colors, right?
Yeah, but for Delta Airlines, it's red, white, and blue, which is, I guess,
Well,
most
I don't
airlines.
think I think it just has to complement because everything in the plane, the seats, the whole bit, is that.
And that's for the ground crew if you're watching. So they've got red and gray, and so it looks like it's a red. What do they call it? Cruising Cardinal.
Passport plum.
Cruising Cardinal.
And I forget. Then the
Probably
gray.
ground stop gray. Or
Ground speed
graphite.
Graphite. Okay,
ground stop.
got it. Yeah.
And then the next few slides shows the actual cruise, but see, they're all in purple, which I kind of, somebody approved it, right?
I don't mind it. I like.
like
it,
the purple?
actually. I think it complements the color scheme nicely. You know.
I guess you see them coming in the.
I never really, it's funny when he got the job to do this because it never crosses my mind that someone somewhere has to design.
Oh yeah.
All the uniforms, and then they do the fabrics. They have to wash.
They have to travel well. They have to stand up well. They have to pack well. They have to not wrinkle. If you think about it, And there's some airlines are famous for their beautiful. I forget who just did the British Airways. Just like theirs all redone, but. So he also came out with a cookbook, which I thought was funny. I mean, this guy's busy.
And on top of all that, he cooks.
Yeah, 2017, 288-page cookbook of 100 recipes, every bit as decadent as his designs. He lives here in Soho, in Lower Manhattan, with his lover, or his boyfriend, Christopher Niquette, and they have 3 dogs.
Happy birthday, Zach
You ever see him on the streets?
No. But I wouldn't mind seeing him. I think we enjoyed when he.
I think he's handsome. Do you think he's handsome or no?
I do, and I thought that he had a great sense of humor and and very smart when he was doing the project. I mean, different than Michael Kors, who was
Michael Kors could be a busy queen.
Oh yeah, but that was what you loved.
Yeah.
And Zach had his own style, but I thought he was always extremely polite when he gave critique and honest.
And Nina Garcia too. One of my favorite lines. We used to have it. I think we still do in our imaging, but we don't play it much anymore. When someone had this dress on and she said, "Short, tight, and shiny is the easiest way to look cheap."
We have the number, so yeah.
Anyway, as you said, happy birthday, Zach. Hey, any of you who are friends here at the Focus Group know that Deep Discount is a partner of ours here. Go to focusgroupradio.com and click on the Deep Discount logo. And away.
Just shopping.
Is the shark here today, or is he in the tank?
Shark's in the tank.
Sharky, we found out his name is.
And yes, one of the Deep Discount marketing crew told us that the logo, the mascot's name is in fact Sharky.
Sharky. So go to focusgroupradio.com, click on the Deep Discount logo, and Sharky will help guide your way to discounted, actually some great prices on all kinds of DVDs and Blu-rays. And there's a Halloween sale going on. And so John has picked a couple of good ones, and he picked one for me this week, which I thought was funny.
You would have picked it yourself.
I would have picked the same thing, but John had found it and said, "I picked this for you," and I just typed back, "Thank you very much."
Thank you.
But which one did you pick first?
I picked Elvira, Mistress of the. Well, we do. I didn't. John in the booth. There might be. There she is. A little out of order. Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. Okay, so anybody who used to watch TV back in the day, and still now, knows that Elvira was the Mistress of the Dark, and she used to have a weekly show.
Wasn't it late night Saturday nights or Fridays?
Saturday thing, yeah.
Was it Saturdays?
And she did a movie called Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, and in the movie, her Aunt Morgana leaves her a house, and she in Falwell, Massachusetts, and she goes up to claim the house, and she falls in with a stud of a construction worker, and the town nemesis, a woman named Chastity Pariah, is out to get her because she thinks she's wicked and evil. And at one point, she's talking to the handyman, and he goes, "You know what your problem is, Elvira? Your problem's Chastity Pariah." And she looks her up and down. She goes, "I thought I got rid of that."
Well, listen to the whole thing of her.
Oh, her huge. It was the tits and everything. Yeah.
Boys. I remember the boys in college.
So there was Garrett. I think I gave a little audio, a snippet of audio from Elvira, Mistress of the Dark.
Are you all right?
Yeah, I think so.
How's your head?
I haven't had any complaints yet.
Excuse me?
So
I think she lives in the Philly area.
Yeah, it could. Yeah, because she used to host. She was the hostess for the haunted prison thing down in Philly. So
that's your head.
It's full of wisecracks, campy chaos, and there are some scary spoofs in there. But Halloween or not, it's a perfect excuse to own Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. $7.81 on DVD. You almost can't say no to this kind of, and I think you'll love it from start to finish.
And for me, and I'm probably going to let John explain the rest of this, but John picked Straight Jacket, which is a Joan Crawford film, and she's a hatchet murderess essentially. She catches her husband in bed with a mistress, and then she hacks him to death with the axe. She goes off to a mental institution, comes back, and then lo and behold, axe murderers start happening again. And John turned me on to this movie, and we laughed and laughed and laughed, and it's campy. And I love the
shadow,
the book, the way it says that it's, or the cover where it says it. I can't read it as well as you.
Warning.
What's it say?
It says something like, "Warning, Straight Jacket
vividly depicts axe murderers." But what it really was is, they said the sound effects guy actually just had a watermelon, and he would just hit, and that was the sound of the head being taken off.
Yeah, so Crawford's character is called Lucy Harbin, and she does kill her husband with an axe for sleeping with his mistress. But the daughter, who's 3 years old at the time, apparently like witnesses the grisly murder. And so Lucy is let out of the mental institution she was in, and she comes back to live with the daughter. And I think her brother and sister-in-law or something like that. And it's just a crazy. It's late Crawford. It's a late career move. But the scene that turned everybody on to this, and the scene that Tim fell in love with, is Lucy, Joan Crawford, is confronted by her old psychologist from the institution she was in. He comes up for a fishing trip or something. He stops by, and he wonders if she's nervous, and to prove that she's not, she lights a match off a spinning record, an LLP. So, Garrett, we have a clip of this exact thing. So let's hear it.
Nervous? And the look in her face, the look of defiance, and
she doesn't even look
bangly.
And they wired her
charm bracelet.
She had a charm bracelet on. They mic'd the bracelet.
She's always got a scotch on the rocks in her hands.
She drinks all the time. And when she strikes that match, she's not even looking at the record player. She's looking directly at the psychologist. She's like nervous, and she whooshed,
grabs a match and lights it off the LP. And we played that. And you said you did it in P-Town a million times. I've done it 1,000,001 times. Just laugh and laugh.
We had a VHS. We rewind. I think we wore out that piece of tape playing that one scene. We would howl with laughter. I still cannot see that now and not die laughing.
You can't help it. They said that she had full script approval and cast approval on the show, or in the script. And there's a couple of funny things. You know, if you watch Mommy Dearest, right, or know anything about Joan Crawford, that she had an affiliation with Pepsi. So in the movie, in the beginning scenes, they said there's a carton of Pepsi Cola prominently displayed on the kitchen counters. And the doctor you talked about was not an actor. He was actually a vice president from PepsiCo that she was friends with, and she put him in the movie.
Oh, my God, are you
didn't
serious?
even tell the director because she said she had full script approval and cast direction and cast approval. So he was just a Pepsi executive that she put in.
Wow. Well, he was born as a board. I mean, but he played the role well. You never know, right?
Yeah.
Tim, thanks for that little behind-the-scenes stuff there. So, hey, at $17.96, Straight Jacket on Blu-ray is a bargain. You won't wear out your tape.
Oh, my God, you'll laugh.
You'll laugh, yeah.
Laugh.
And so the new release this week from Deep Discount is Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again on Blu-ray. It stars most of the cast of the original one. Meryl Streep is in it. Amanda Seyfried, Lily James, Cher makes an appearance. And apparently, do you think this is where the movie, the ABBA stuff came from?
Oh, yeah. Do you have it, by the way?
No, you got this a couple weeks ago. You loved it.
We've been playing it nonstop, and it's hilarious because most of the gay boys
Tim's
have
talking about Cher's album. Yeah.
So Cher did a remake of all the most popular ABBA songs.
From this.
And, but you can, it's Cher.
Well, you talked about it a
Waterloo! How's it feel, Waterloo? Can you hear the drums, Fernando? You'll enjoy it over a cocktail.
Well, I think I might enjoy it more than the stage show. We were in Vegas one time, and we got to see Cher perform at was it Caesars? Maybe it was Caesars. And just as she was getting into a song, she'd be off stage doing a costume change. They'd whip it into something different. So it was, so Mamma Mia. So to recap, we definitely recommend Elvira, Mistress of the Dark on the Halloween sale at deep discount, which you can get to by visiting focusgroupradio.com and clicking on the shark logo called Sharky. Then you could pick up Straight Jacket on Blu-ray as well and replay that scene where she's striking a match off a spinning LP. And the new release this week is Mamma Mia.
You can tell you picked this, John. It's Elvira, Joan Crawford, and Cher.
I didn't. Well, hey, release of the week is release of the week.
It's fit right in there.
All right, what do you say, Garrett?
Thanks, Deep Discount.
All right, we're going to take a really quick break, and when we return, we have an article that Tim teased at the top of the show about how unattractive people earn significantly more money. There are question marks around this whole thing, so stay with us.
Brought to you by the Volkswagen Tiguan. Visit VW.com to learn more. Focus on the savvy side of 9 to 5 with the Focus Group.
Try, really try.
Listen, laugh, and learn with Tim and John.
I never try anything. I just do it.
That's the best one. Welcome back to the focus group. Like us, we don't ask anymore. But if you're on the Facebook or the YouTube or SoundCloud or Spotify.
Oh my God, that was so unenthusiastic.
Apple Podcasts or
on the elbow. Like us, click, subscribe.
Right? Isn't it all about the clicks and the likes and the clicks?
You know what I would actually prefer?
What?
Whenever I visit our podcast, the audio podcast on iTunes, I always love reviews, and we have great reviews, and I think they're spot on, and they're usually 5 stars. So I say,
write a review.
Write a great review.
Love us, like us, click us. So this article for Shop Talk that John had made reference to before a quick little break is. The headline is, very unattractive people earn significantly more money, according to a new study. Now, I immediately read that and was skeptical because we've heard forever, and I would say from our experiences that more attractive people generally make more money, the thought would be, and similar to where men made more money than women, there was additional confidence and people felt that they were a bit more... Well, I guess confidence is the right word, right? And that would help you move through your career.
This was from Business Insider, which, and they always bullet the beginning. If you ever go to businessinsider.com, any article, they always kind of top line it, which is so, business for the executive, right? So it starts off with a couple of bullet points. Beautiful people arguably have an easier life. They're happier, healthier, and have more friends. I guess that's an assumption you make. A common belief is that good-looking people also earn more money. But a new study turns this theory on its head. Bullet point 4, researchers have found that people who are very unattractive may be the biggest earners. And lastly, so your looks might not let you down, at least when it comes to money.
And it wasn't just unattractive. It was downright ugly, because they said there was unattractive and average, and then they went to the ugly spectrum. So my first question about this was, who decided who was attractive and who wasn't?
Totally read my mind. So the study comes out of the London School of Economics and Political Science, and that researcher was Satoshi Kanazawa, and there's a woman named Mary Still from the University of Massachusetts in Boston. The two of them analyzed the data on this, and they looked at a study of 20,000 young Americans. They were interviewed and measured on physical attractiveness at age 16, then 3 more times until they were 29.
So my other big issue there is 16 to 29. When you're 16, you're still awkward and somewhat geeky. When you're 29, you're an adult.
Yeah.
And if you look at people when they're 16, maybe still have late stages of acne or whatever.
Yeah.
Still maturing.
Yeah.
So somebody that's 16 to 29 would also
They're not going to...
Don't you think that'd be very different? I think companies profile, I know when I worked in the auto industry, you could pretty much guarantee that someone who was calling on a dealership, if they were male, so if you were out wholesaling vehicles, you were over 6 foot tall, you had dark hair, you probably played a varsity sport in college or were on a fraternity.
Yeah.
And I remember somebody pointing it all out to us about saying there's definitely a profile for a forward-facing person that's dealing with the public, which would generally be salesperson, which would be more attractive. And that's my thought on this is, if you're an accountant or you're a software engineer,
you're back of house.
You could be geeky and a little nerdy and probably be really good at what you do and would then garner more money.
But you don't have a public So when I owned my first ad agency, we were down on Spring Street here in the city, and at that time, a lot of the big printing companies were right around us, and we had a sales call made by a lovely woman, and no business came out of it, and the company is no longer in existence. It was called Chromacolor. And so I saw an acquaintance of mine one day who's also in the same industry. He goes, "Oh, did you have the Chromacolor girls come by?" He goes, "They're all," and he's not gay, and he said, Chroma hires the best saleswomen. They're beautiful. I love when they come by." About a month later, we had a sales visit from a different representative of Chromacolor, and it was a male. And he was a Chromacolor guy, and trust me, the guy was knockout handsome. And guess who? Dave gives him business.
Of course he did.
I remember his name even.
When I worked at my first job out of college, I worked for the steel company, LTV Steel, and I followed a Penn State blonde 6-foot female cheerleader. She had the territory before me, and every purchasing guy I talked to, whatever happened to Linda?
Yeah, yeah.
So, but companies do that. And I thought, so the second part of this was they looked at saying, and if you are in sales and you do have, as you had mentioned, maybe you put more confident or attractive people there, they're more open to move. And they said this openness also they think can be a distraction, because if you get moved to a bunch of different jobs, you don't become an expert in one particular thing. And
Correct.
they said some of the people that may be categorized as unattractive would then become very strict experts in a particular area, which would garner them more salary.
Yeah, because they're not
Specialists.
Yeah, because they're not in front of the public, they're not doing that kind of thing. So that's where, at the end of the day, I would call this, it's empirical on some level, because they have data, they've analyzed, they've asked people questions, they've done their thing. But a lot of this felt very anecdotal to me, or almost like there was an anecdotal idea that they tried to put a framework around to measure. But there's a lot of objectivity, or subjectivity, actually. I'm sorry, I take that back. Because you have to have a scale, like who's here, who's ugly, you're literally, and everybody has to subscribe to that same scale, right?
Right.
So I don't know.
Of what you think is attractive, right?
If anything that you get pulled out of this, though, it's that I think that they came up with that thing you just talked about the idea of openness and about being in front of people or not being in front of people. And if you are of a certain type that doesn't want that, you may in fact put all your energy into being an expert at something, and that could in fact garner you a lot more money.
A lot more money, because you're going to really dig into it, and that's you're there, and that's that. And that when somebody is a specialist, that's why I said if you were an accountant or you really had a strong specialty in a particular area and you weren't moving around from office to office or doing different roles, you would
do that.
You would do that. So I got that. But we used to always joke you could hire ugly or you could hire pretty just as easily as ugly.
Well, especially if you're talking about a trade show or that.
I don't think I've ever hired an ugly person, though, when I think about it.
I even hate having to worry about that kind of thing.
No, but this made me think about it, and I thought I did. But I would say I'm not sure I even had.
I know so many people you hired when you used to be at the old brand, and everybody just looked cool and normal to me.
Yeah.
I never parsed them on the scale of.
Of course, they're all in their 20s, and everybody's good looking in their 20s, aren't they?
I got to tell you, there's more truth to that than meets the eye, right?
Yeah. No, that's I would agree with that.
All right, we're going to take one last quick break, and when we return, we have another article that kind of piqued our interest, and the headline was "Why All Work Meetings Should Be Video Meetings, Even the In-Person Ones." Okay, a lot to unpack there. So we'll be right back after this very quick break.
Brought to you by the 7-seater Volkswagen Atlas. Life's as big as you make it. Visit VW.com to learn more. Focus on the savvy side of 9 to 5 with the Focus Group.
Been in business a week. I got more money than I know what to do with.
Listen, laugh, and learn with Tim and John.
Herrera Rocher. He is doing well.
Hey, welcome back to the Focus Group. Tim Bennett here, as always, with my good friend and co-host, John Nash. And hey, as promised, in November, we're not going to announce the date yet, but I think early November, we have Aunt Barbara joining us.
Barbara returns. She returns to sell
Tupperware. She'll be joining us, and we've been talking with her, and we're excited. To have
one
her
time
come
she
back.
was on our old show over at Sirius, and I said something about, "Do you burp the lid?" "Oh, darling." She goes, Rubbermaid. Rubbermaid has the lid.
Lids are for trash.
Lids are for trash cans. That's what it was. Yeah.
We have seals.
Seals. We have seals. So this new shop talk was called "Why All Working Meetings Should Be Video Meetings, Even the In-Person Ones." And what was your quick takeaway on this?
Stupid.
Yeah, I
No.
well, no, you could shut it down quick by just saying that. But the head of a software company initially talked about this, and then you read that almost every employee is a remote worker. So naturally, meetings that they have to be done by video conferencing because they're all over the country and the world.
Right, but what he did say is that, so if And I think there was a stat that over 43% of the total workforce globally now works some sort of remote schedule. But this situation was they were having a group meeting, and even himself and another person, even though they were physically in the same location, same office, probably 10 feet away, that they both did it via video.
Yeah.
And you and I have run into this with a couple of our clients recently where I just shake my head. We're having a conference call, and rather than them all gathering together, they're in different parts, and then the phones get screwed up because you get so many phones on, right?
And their cell, and they drop, and they don't.
But why not just meet together in one room together with the one connection or whatever? So, they talked about, and I thought this was a little creepy, they talked about how they expect 10 years from now that you'll be able to actually have a virtual handshake where you would be able to physically feel like you're shaking somebody's hands. But they did say that some of this is, what's the right word I'm looking for? If you're calling in remotely, if there's a bunch of people that are together for a meeting and somebody calls in remotely that's part of the team, they still feel almost like second class because they're not getting the what's going on. They can't feel the tenor of the room. They're like a fly on the wall. Mm-hmm. And you and I have talked about so many things get done after the meeting in the stairwell or in the elevator or
right
outside the hallway. Yeah. And if you're not on site, I wonder if you miss out on stuff.
I do think you do. So they broke this into three big things where they said basically, if you're going to do video meetings for everybody wherever you're at, you do it for the remote workers, you do it for the collaborative effects, and you do it for the virtual handshake. I think on the first point, the do it for remote workers, if 43% of employed Americans spend at least some time working remotely, this makes sense to me. And even though you're not getting the physicality of being in the same room, in the same space as everybody else, at least you're kind of there and you're getting it. You and I have sat on multiple conference calls on the phone where we could just sit back and listen as people try to figure something simple out, like an Outlook calendar. Like, is that room free? Is that room free? I don't know. That's a lot of wasted time, in my opinion. The collaborative effects, do it for collaborative effects, was something that did not cross my mind, though, and that is that many people work on Slack, Dropbox, Trello, Asana, any of these collaborative platforms. So you're already doing work together virtually. And this is an extension of that. You might as well do
share a screen.
Share a screen. And that one was the most useful tip out of that, was you could just click, click, click. Now here's what I'm looking at. Oh, no, I'm looking at something different. And then that virtual handshake thing was kind of
creepy.
Yeah.
I thought. This is probably where I'm old school, where I wouldn't even want to have the phones in the room still.
Yeah.
But I remember many times of me being summoned to Japan or sent to Japan, and I thought, for a 20-minute meeting. And I would say, could I, instead of me flying 13 hours and time change, can we do it by Skype or could we do it by a phone call? But there was something about they wanted you in front of them.
Physically.
In the eye. And I remember one time Bill Cyphers and I flying all the way over. It was ridiculous.
What was the meeting about?
Just to tell us that we needed to be on board with the auto show program. Essentially, it was
you
literally
went all that way for someone to say, get on board with the program?
I mean, Bill essentially said, he goes, we've got to fly to Japan for a dressing down. The Americans, we felt something different about what they were doing globally, and so we were doing our own thing, which, of course, you know me, Mondaji, the nail that's up.
Nail that refuses to be, yeah.
So we were summoned back to the mothership to be schooled, and we literally we walked in. It was quite a funny day because I remember Bill and I getting in this room. We've never been before. We're at the headquarters, which is right in Shinjuku, Tokyo, and none of the furniture had legs on it. And so he and I both sink in the sofa, and our knees are up at our chins. We're sitting there. We're sitting there, and there's like this light hanging off a cord. Zzz, zzz, zzz. And the tea lady comes in, full Japanese, with the tea service. Oh, yeah, whole thing comes in, walks in, and then backs out of the room. And we're sitting there, zzz, 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 and Billy goes, what, are we going to get a lap dance? And then the Japanese executives came in, and because Bill and I are sitting in this little sofa like this, and they were in the hard chairs, and finger wagging with the translation was essentially thank you for coming in. And then Bill and I are like, now what? So we went out and we got some great Japanese food. We hung around for the day in Tokyo, and then we flew back to New Jersey.
So you were, so they literally put you at a physical disadvantage?
It was this sofa that you would have thrown away at the Goodwill.
They cut the legs off.
Legs are off, but that was all the furniture there. I mean, the headquarters was not.
It wasn't meant to be taken a nap on, right? It's not comfortable.
And headquarters offices in Japan were never very nice because workers came and worked there for life, so you didn't have to have any sort of amenities to keep workers because that's what you did. But so this at the time, I still remember him just looking at me, and I was like, "What's going on here? We've never had this tea service thing and the whole deal." That's when he's, Bill and his little circuit. What are we going to get, a lap dance,
And then they just basically...
It was a 20-minute meeting, and he and I, and Bill looked at it this way. He goes, well, we picked up 10,000 frequent flyer miles.
Wow. I wonder.
For the loop, and yeah. So that to me is a waste of money. Yeah. And I could see where we could have had a meeting.
Over the video.
But they refer to it here as IRL, which is in real life.
Yeah, I saw. I'm glad you picked up on that because I stalled on that acronym. I'm reading this thing and I said that it says, or perhaps we've just been conditioned to think that checking in IRL is the best way to get to the bottom of an issue. And I thought, IRL. And then I thought, in real life. It took me a second to decode that.
But you've owned a number of businesses, and do you think now you could have all your staff be remote?
No.
Don't you think as a creative person, if you were in there and you're working on a campaign and you were saying, here's what the client needs, here's the kind of feedback we have, here's the direction we think we're going, here's the palette we think we're going to go toward, or the tone of the campaign, you'd get so much done in a half an hour together around a table than you would if you were, hold on, are you connected? Can you hear me? Let me call you back.
So when last year around this time in November I was at my graduation for the animation program, and I was selected to do the DreamWorks tour and the Disney Studio tour, which is really super cool. And on the Disney Studio tour, they did a really great job. They had animators talk about how they landed at Disney, what they did to get there, and then the woman that walked us around was actually one of their senior recruiters. And at one point, we're walking down this beautiful hallway with all these original cell animation things on it. It was all Mickey Mouse stuff, and I said, "Hey, do you have a lot of your animators or your production staff that work remotely?" She answered so quick it caught me off guard. She goes, "Nope." She just shook her head. She goes, "That does not happen." She said, "In this business, I need to be able to walk up to you physically and say, 'Could you come here and look at this?'" She goes, "That's so hard to do virtually."
Right, because then she would have to say, "Let me find John.
Let me schedule a time.
Can you do Skype? Can you?" Yeah.
And then she said, and this is the part that I think was the most intriguing to me. She said, "Since we're in the business of creating emotion," she goes, "it's kind of hard to emote or to get an emotion out of you if you're just if you're one step removed from it. If you're looking at it off a screen of a screen of a screen, or however that analogy went." She said, "You're not going to give me the same reaction to me asking you for input and notes and advice than if you were physically right here and you immediately say, 'I get it, I like it,' or 'No, this has got to change.'" So that was an eye-opener for me.
Or the context, and that was always the danger we said about texting people too, right? You
read it.
might flippantly send something back. Somebody will take it the wrong way, or they're angry, or they're
and
mad at me
I've
or
watched
something.
when that has happened, when people have, I was with a friend of mine once. He was interviewing for a job, very nervous. He was at the last rounds. Someone else took the interviewing process over and issued an email to him. And I was literally standing next to him when it came in, and the entire evening changed because it became a job of parsing and sorting the email. I said I would just read it as they're taking over, they want to be brought up to speed, they'll get back to you. But it was all like, oh, this is a bad It turned out I was right. But you're right. If you're left to interpret it by yourself, minus the physicality of how it's being delivered, you'll come up with a conclusion. It might be right. It might be wrong.
Well, that even in my last, dying breaths of corporate America, that was the one frustration I had as email started to become more popular. People that were right next to me
would email me,
and I would say, "Just get out of your chair and walk over," and that way, and just have a conversation about it rather than let me think about it, let me ask, and then back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I do that now with friends with texting. We have a good friend of ours in Chicago, Marianne, that likes to text. She won't pick up a phone. And she'll go back and forth, back and forth. You and I do it transactionally, but if there's something that needs to be...
I talk almost every day,
but if there's something that needs to be discussed, we're not going to be able to do it on text. Pick up the phone.
No, and you're really good about choosing your level of complexity. So you and I have actually switched to doing more texting. Because it's usually like, has this guest replied, or did you get this, or did you post that?
I'm done with the deck.
Done with this, whatever. And then for more complex stuff that we might want to read and study or pull something out of, you send an email. And my friend Chris, who teaches up at Williams, if you're a friend, he'll ignore you. Unless he tells you to text, he will ignore it unless you call. You got to call him. He'll pick up right away. Oh, how good. And it reminds me of... I hate to say it this way. It reminds me of the old days.
Yeah.
You'd call. You had to call. And yet someone had to answer. When the phone rang, there was no, like, caller ID. You had to interact.
You think about that, right? You pick up the phone number. Phone rang. It was crapshoot every time, right?
On Nash.
But you wouldn't know who was calling.
Did you answer your phone?
This is Tim.
It's Tim, yeah.
But then we had to change it to thank you for calling. For a while, they were going to use the tagline, and then it became too cumbersome, and then it was thank you for calling, or this is marketing.
And I eventually just became what you did. I'm like, this is John. How can I help you? Oh, hi, John. This is so-and-so. I'm calling because I want to sell you. Like, I used to have such hilarious conversations with salespeople. Not bad. I might not buy what they were selling, but sometimes it evolved into an actual relationship where I would buy something. But it all started with that cold.
I had one, and you know who this is. I won't mention who they were, but they used to call all the time looking for business. And he had his assistant call and be like, hi, this is James. I'm calling on behalf of, Bill Smith. And I would say, you know what? When Bill Smith has time to call me, he can call me. In
person, yeah. I did the same thing.
When I'm playing the game with you, you're going to set up something for him to call.
Yeah, I used to do that. Whenever somebody would do that, I'm calling on behalf of. I'm like, well, on behalf of me, the person they're trying to reach, tell them they can pick it up themselves, and I'll be available. And then eventually, like, I remember one time I did that, and 2 minutes later the phone rings, and it was the person. I'm like, oh, hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
Hey, what was going on? I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, my assistant. I said, oh, no.
Yeah.
You
want to call me? Call me.
People, is a direct line. I don't have a secretary or anything like that. All right, well, that kind of wraps up the focus group for this week. Tim's third guestless show in a row. Play Powerball, I guess. We should play.
Oh, yeah, well, we're all here. We didn't win anything. Did you boys have tickets?
No.
I heard.
You didn't even buy tickets? Did you have tickets?
No.
I had 3 tickets.
And I heard someone in South Carolina might have gotten the winning ticket.
Can you imagine? What would you do with $930 million?
A lot. I'd do a lot with $930 million.
You all would.
I'd give a lot of it away.
Not this.
I'd have I'd buy this building for you boys.
Thank you.
Just for Garrett and John. Thank you, Garrett and John. Thank you, Tim. Thanks to Deep Discount for being a partner of ours here on the show. Halloween sale. Go to deepdiscount.com to check it out. Get there by clicking on the Sharky the Shark logo at focusgroupradio.com. We looked at Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, Straight Jacket, and the release this week is Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again. And a big thank you to Volkswagen Group of America for being with us for 9 years now. You and I are like, yeah, it's 9. Check out all the great deals they have on some of their new vehicles. Great lease prices as well. End of year is usually a good time to check out a new car because you can either get last year's model or a good price on the current model, which is usually the next calendar year. So VW.com to learn more. We will see you next week. And don't text and drive. Arrive alive.
It's The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.